Before I get started with this video, I would just like to point out that 72.9 of you all aren't subscribed to my channel. So please, click subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss a video. Enjoy. What is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man. And I would just like to apologize for part 3 being a little late. I got what some people would call writer's block, and I couldn't come up with anything. But luckily, I got those creative juices flowing and I made this. So I hope you all enjoy this story. Have a nice day. In this story, we will be changing perspectives from a different person. In this story, we will be taking a look at the view of Shoto Todoroki when he was 4 years old. Where we last left off with him, he built a giant glacier of ice to divide him from his brother to protect him from their abusive father. Endeavor was closing in, while Shoto was still stuck in the coil spring trap. As his father, Endeavor, approaches, Shoto's head started to hurt as if someone hit him in the head with a baseball bat. Endeavor stops and looks at the giant glacier of ice that Shoto made. He is amazed. Endeavor, in his mind, says, if he can do this with his ice, think of the possibilities he could do with his fire. Shoto then passes out. A few hours have passed. He wakes up in his bedroom with a jolt. He quickly sits up and yells, "Brother!" A few seconds of breathing, Shoto looks around to a very spacious room, for all of Izuku's things are gone. A few seconds, Shoto remembers everything, and he looks down to his leg and sees that it was bandaged up from the coil spring trap. He thinks about his brother and hopes that he's okay. While thinking, the door to Shoto's bedroom opens to Toya emerging from it. He says, "Hey, Shoto, you're finally up. You've been out for a while." Toya then sees Shoto's worried face and he says, "Shoto, I know you made a last-minute choice, but if you ask me, I think you made the right decision." Shoto looks to Toya as a tear falls down Shoto's face. Shoto then hugged his brother and says, "I really hope he's okay." The moment was interrupted by Endeavor entering the room, looking angry. He walks up to the two young men and says to Toya, "Leave us." Toya is hesitant, but he looks down to Shoto, gives him a sympathetic smile, and says everything's going to be okay. Giving him one last hug, he leaves him and Endeavor be so that they could speak. Endeavor then sits down and he talks. "I don't know what you were thinking, just running off like that." Shoto just sits there in silence. Endeavor speaks. "You know what? It doesn't matter. What does matter is that we get you back on your training. And about that thing, thanks for getting rid of it. Now I have one less problem to worry about. But, putting all that aside, I refuse to let all that beautiful power go to waste after seeing that amazing display of it back in the mountains. Just think of the possibilities of your fire quirk." Shoto flinches from what his father says about him using his fire side makes him angry. Shoto finally speaks. "You're wrong. I'm never going to use my fire side. Ever since I got my quirk, you've made my life a living hell. And how dare you call my brother a thing? He's your son, and you threatened to kill him if we ever spoke about him in your presence. You're not a hero, you're a monster. And I refuse to be a weapon for your sick and twisted obsession to be a child that is stronger than All Might. And one of these days, just one of these days, your obsession will be your greatest mistake. And Mom..." Shoto then has a flashback to the last time he saw his mom. "You're the reason she hurt me. I hate you." Shoto then lays back down in his bed and he begins to cry. Endeavor sits there thinking over what Shoto just said, and then he gets up and leaves Shoto alone. The next day comes. It's early in the morning, and Shoto gets out of bed, leaving his room while walking down the hallway. All of a sudden, Shoto felt something odd happening. He turned around to see what looked like a shadowy figure of of a bear that turned the corner. It was big, and it had eyes that glowed the color yellow. Shoto was confused and scared. All the young boy could do was just stand there as the bear just looks at him. A few seconds later, the bear figure then began to run toward Shoto. Shoto began to run down the hallway, and after a few seconds of running, something felt wrong. Shoto felt like he was running down an endless hallway. No matter how long he ran, he felt like he wasn't getting anywhere, nor the end of it. But he couldn't stop. A few seconds of running, Shoto reaches the end of the hallway, and there was no other way out. Shoto then turned around to face the bear. All he could do was watch as the bear approaches him closer and closer to accept his fate. The bear is very close. That was until it was outnumbered by what appeared to be shadowy dog figures. These dog figures began to attack the bear. One dog even finished it off by ripping out its throat. And one of the dog figures then approached Shoto, and then the vision ends with Shoto's sister, Fuyumi, saying, "Hey, Shoto, what's the matter?" Shoto then looks around, pondering away about what just happened. He speaks. "I don't know. I just miss my brother." Fuyumi then tightly hugs Shoto and says, "It's going to be okay. I can't say that he's doing all right out there, but he's better off out there than he is here." Shoto then pulls Fuyumi back in for another hug. A few hours later, the young boy has concluded his training for the day. He went to bed with bruises and tired lungs. The young boy then falls asleep for the next day. A few hours have passed. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. He gets up and heads to the bathroom. While walking, Shoto passes all the spots in his room where Izuku's things were. He deeply misses his brother very much. He can't stop thinking about him. A few seconds later, Shoto has entered the bathroom and sees that the bandages over the left side of his face were falling off. He thinks for a moment and decides it's time for the bandage to come off. He feels around for the end of the bandages to unwrap it from around his face. He takes a deep breath and he slowly removes it. As he begins to unwrap, he continues to look at himself in the mirror, hoping that there's nothing there. As the bandage that was covering a decent part of his face began to uncover, a small red mark can be seen from underneath a part of the bandages. Shoto sees this and begins to freak out a little bit. He continues to unwrap, and in doing so, he reveals the red mark to be bigger and bigger. He finishes, and a big red scar can be seen covering a little more than half of his face. Shoto was shocked. It was like time was slowing down so he could take in the horrible thing that has happened to him. Shoto begins to lose control of his breathing as he remembers the moment that made it happen as he looked into his mother's eyes. Excuse that. Sorry about that. As he remembers that look in his eyes that his mother gave him. With each passing moment, Shoto's breathing would get more and more out of control, and then he lets out a loud scream as he covers the bathroom with ice. All of a sudden, not all of a sudden, all of Shoto's siblings run to the bathroom to see what's wrong. When they open the door, all they could see is white smoke. They all slowly walk in. Toya then stops both of his brother and sister, saying, "Wait, there's a shattered mirror on the ground." They all look down to see bits and pieces of their reflection on the ground. They all look to the corner of the room and sees that Shoto is curled up and shivering, giving out a few breaths, trying to regain his control of his breathing. They all make their way to him. Fuyumi says, Shoto, what's wrong? Shoto just lays there. He doesn't want them to see his face. Natsuo then walks up to Shoto, puts a hand on his shoulder, saying, Hey bro, what's wrong? He tries to roll over Shoto, but he shakes out of his grip so that he wouldn't turn him over. Toya then looks to the ground and sees the bandages that was once on Shoto's head, now on the ground. He picks it up and says he's got a scar on his face. Fuyumi and Natsuo then turn to face Toya. He continues to speak. The hot water must have left a permanent mark on his face. He doesn't want us to see it. Toya then walks up to Shoto and says, Little brother, listen, I know you hate what has happened to you, but this is no reason to hide your scar. They may be forever, but they're a lesson. They tell us stories about what has happened in our lives, and there's absolutely no shame in having one. Shoto begins to relax after hearing his brother's words. Shoto then sits up, still covering the left part of his face. Natsuo speaks. It's okay, Shoto. Shoto then takes a deep breath and lowers his hand, revealing his scar. Fuyumi then says, Okay, Shoto, I'm going to do a small test to see if your left eye is working okay. Alright? Shoto then nods his head. Fuyumi then has him covers his right eye, and she raises her right arm to his face, holding up 3 fingers, and says, How many fingers am I holding up? Shoto then responds with 3. Okay, said Fuyumi. Natsuo then grabbed a bottle of shampoo and said, Can you read the wording on this container? Shoto then said, Yeah. Toya then steps in, saying, Okay, and now, what is the color of this flame? Toya then begins to conjure blue fire on his right index finger. Shoto then responds, saying, Blue. Good, said Toya. Fuyumi speaks. Okay, we're gonna clean up this mess, and we're gonna get you back to bed, okay? Shoto nods his head in agreement, and a few minutes later, the ice and the shattered mirror has been cleaned. Everyone was about to head back to their rooms to sleep, but they were stopped by Shoto. Hey, can you all spend the night with me? I'm scared tonight. Being by myself. All 3 of Shoto's siblings smile, and they gather their blankets and their pillows to sleep with their younger brother. It's the next day. Shoto is in the middle of training with Endeavor. Alright, Shoto, today we will be doing dodging. I'm going to come at you and you're going to either dodge or block my attacks. Are you ready? Shoto then prepares himself. Endeavor then charges at Shoto, but then something happens. Through Shoto's eyes, his father has taken the shape of what appears to be a large shadowy figure of a wildcat. This figure looked more similar to the bear. The only difference is the color of its eyes were glowing blue. Shoto didn't quite understand what was going on, but he had to keep his distance. The giant cat then lunged itself at Shoto, but he found himself to be surprisingly quicker than usual. The large cat then turns its head in Shoto's direction out of confusion. It tried to lunge itself at him again, only for the same thing to happen. Shoto was just too fast for the cat to catch him. Shoto then hears growling from the figure. It was about to try again, but this time Shoto tripped over something and he fell down, laying on his stomach. When he turned around, he saw that the large cat was about to land on top of him, but he was frightened by this, tightly closed his eyes, and raised his right hand into the air. He conjures ice daggers around him, and he heard a man scream. He opens his eyes, and he sees that the large cat figure has been impaled in the chest and in the stomach. Shoto looked back up, shocked, and in so much disbelief from what is happening. Then all of a sudden, Shoto heard Endeavor calling his name. Shoto! Shoto snapped out of it, and the vision ended. He looked around and began to see a little bit of blood on one of the daggers that he conjured around him. He slowly makes his way out from the daggers, and he turns the corner to see his father holding his left arm with his right hand as it bled. Endeavor began to pant faster from anger as he walks over to Shoto and smacks him across the face, saying, "Are you crazy? You could have killed me." Shoto then gets up, saying, "I didn't mean to. I thought you were a cougar." Endeavor gets confused, but walks away, tending to his wound. Toya, who saw the whole thing, then walks up to Shoto and says, "Wow, that was awesome. He totally had it coming." Shoto started to rub the back of his head, saying, "I don't know what's going on. For the past 2 days, I've been seeing things, if not animals, trying to kill me." Toya thinks for a moment and says, "Wait, I just thought of something. Did you say that the doctor said that Izuku had 3 quirks?" Shoto nodded his head, saying, "Yes." "Well, what if Izuku's third quirk connects you and him together?" Shoto thinks for a moment, and he remembers that night in the mountains when Izuku and him came in contact with each other, and Izuku admitted a bright light that spreaded to Shoto. Shoto speaks. "Oh my goodness, that actually makes sense now. That night must have connected me and Izuku together." Shoto then turns to face Toya and says, Could he be in danger right now? In that last vision I had, he went up against a cougar. Oh no." Shoto then got on both of his knees while holding his head down with both of his hands, saying, "Did I put my brother in danger?" Toya approaches his troubled brother and says it's going to be okay. Just tell me about the first time you started having these visions. Shoto thinks about it for a moment, and he thinks of the bear attack and says, "And after I came back from the mountains, I had a vision of a bear. It was chasing me, and I got cornered. And at one point, I was about to accept my fate until a group of wolves then jumped out and saved me. I snapped out of it. One of the wolves, well, before I could snap out of it, one of the wolves then approached me, and that's it." Toya speaks. "Well, maybe that first vision was Izuku being saved by said wolf, and they welcomed him into their pack." Last thing I welcomed them into his pack. Shoto looks to the ground, thinking for a moment, and says, "Maybe that could be possible." Shoto continues to speak. "But why in this vision was he fighting a cougar?" Toya speaks. My guess is that he was fighting to protect someone." Shoto then says, "Well, I guess that would make sense. In this vision, he was victorious. I saw the cougar's chest and stomach have been impaled by the ice daggers. So, he has to be okay. I hope. But when it ended, I heard a voice. It said, 'Shinmaku. Are you okay?' Toya then says, 'Shinmaku? Do you think that voice was talking about Izuku?' 'I think so,' said Shoto. Toya speaks back, saying, 'Come on, let's go tell the others about this.' Shoto then gets up from the ground and he walks inside with his brother. In the living room, Natsuo, Fuyumi, and Toya are discussing Shoto's situation. Natsuo speaks. 'Interesting. So, you're basically saying that you and Izuku are somewhat tethered together? I think so, said Shoto. I don't quite understand, but I could somehow feel him as if he's nearby. Fuyumi speaks. Well, can you tell us where he is? I don't think I can. I don't really know how to use this quirk. Toya speaks. Well, how about you just focus? Like, concentrate and remember how you feel when you have these visions. And then maybe you'll feel some sort of connection there. Shoto speaks. I suppose I could try that. Shoto then closes his eyes and concentrates. After a few seconds, it looks like nothing is about to happen. That was until Shoto started emitting a bright light around his body. Natsuo, Fuyumi, and Toya are surprised about this. Shoto's hair then began to wave in motion as if there was a fan underneath him. After a few seconds, the light began to fade away. Shoto then slowly opens his eyes. Well, what happened? Said Natsuo. Don't leave us hanging, said Fuyumi. Shoto then speaks. I saw two wolves. They were talking to Izuku, and they want his help to stop some sort of monster. I don't think Izuku remembers who he is. He's letting them calling him Shinmaku, and for some reason he doesn't talk. And they make it sound like he used his ice quirk for the first time. Shoto looks to his left and says, what's happening to him? It's like he doesn't remember his past life. Fuyumi speaks. It's okay. Was there a way that you could tell us where he is? I don't know, said Shoto. It's like I could sense him for 1 second, and then there's nothing. Natsuo speaks. It's okay. You just need more time to hone this new ability of yours. But right now, it's probably best if we all go get some sleep. It's getting late. Everyone nods their head in agreement, and Fuyumi speaks. And Shoto, if you ever get another one of those visions, let us know. It could be something important. Okay, said Shoto. As they all make their way to their beds, Toya speaks to Shoto, saying, Shoto, does this mean that you have 3 quirks now? Like Izuku? Shoto gives out a and says, yeah, I guess you're right. Shoto then looks up to his brother Toya's head and notices that there's little strips of white hair appearing. He speaks, hey, Toya, why is your hair turning white in some spots? Toya then speaks, oh, hey, I didn't notice that. But I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm too tired. Toya then gives out a yawn and says, might keep that in. Good night, Shoto. Shoto responds back, saying, good night, Toya. They all head to their beds. At 3 a.m., Shoto wakes up with a jolt, and out of instinct, he looks out the window and could have sworn that he saw something near the trees. He thought to himself, could it be Izuku? Shoto instinctively ran out of his room and outside to investigate. Outside, a full moon can be seen. The shadows of the trees hide what is in the forest. Shoto stands there, out in the open. He calls Izuku's name. Izuku? Izuku, are you there? All of a sudden, another vision came to Shoto. In this vision, Shoto sees nothing but trees in every direction. For where he's standing is an open field, and he's just surrounded by trees, nothing else. He continues to look around, and all of a sudden, he heard his own voice. Izuku? Shoto was confused because how could he hear his own voice if he didn't say anything? The voice continues, I'm so happy to see you, brother. Now we can be together again. Shoto thought to himself, could this be a trap or something? Shoto then speaks out loud. Izuku, listen, no matter what, don't follow that voice. It's not me. The voice speaks again. Come on, brother. Let's run away together. Shoto then speaks again. Don't move, Izuku. The voice then speaks one more time. Brother, I'm coming for you. Shoto grows scared of whatever is impersonating him. He sees something. It emerges from the shadow. And what he sees horrifies him to his very core. For what he sees is a tall, humanoid figure. Shoto was scared. His legs felt like jelly, and he fell to the ground, landing on his backside. This thing had sharp claws and sharp teeth that looked like it could rip the flesh off of anything. Shoto looked over and he saw a wolf cub and thought to himself, is that Izuku? There was no one else near them, so he had no doubt in his mind that this wolf was indeed his brother. Shoto then put on a brave face for him, and then he gets up to his feet and walks in front of Izuku, saying, It's okay, Izuku, I'll protect you, like I promised. The monster gets closer and closer. Shoto looks back to see Izuku hasn't moved. He turns back to him and says, What are you doing? Just run. The monster gets closer, and it walks past Shoto as if it was a phantom. As he walks, it walks towards the small wolf brother. Shoto then jumps towards them both, trying to grab the monster's leg, but he went through it, and then the vision stops. Shoto doesn't know what to think. Did the monster get him? Shoto then begins to cry because he thought that his brother was... No, he can't be. Shoto tries to feel the connection, but for some reason he can't feel anything. Shoto then speaks. Come on, please give me something. Let me know you're okay, Izuku, please. He continues to weep. Shoto then feels a hand on his shoulder. He turns around to his brother Toya. Shoto then hugs his brother. A few hours later, Shoto wakes up, not wanting to get out of bed, for he is still pondering away about what happened to Izuku, and why can't he feel the connection anymore? What is wrong with me? Why don't I feel him anymore? The doors to his bedroom then open with Natsuo, Fuyumi, and Toya emerging from it. Fuyumi speaks. Shoto, Toya told us about what happened last night. Are you okay? Shoto just tightens his grip on his blanket, covering his body, and he lays there in bed, not saying anything. Trying to fight back the tears, but he couldn't fight back the sobbing. Natsuo then walks up to Shoto's bed and sits down next to him. I'm sorry, Shoto, but are you sure you can't feel anything from him? Shoto just lays there, not saying anything. Fuyumi then leans up against the wall and slides down it. She then puts both of her hands to her face and begins to cry. Toya just stands there while clenching his fist, trying to fight back the tears, but he just can't help it. Everyone just starts crying for the loss of what they think was the loss of their brother. A few minutes later, Endeavor enters the room saying, Shoto, it's time for your training. What's going on here? Fuyumi speaks. It's nothing, Dad. Shoto just needs some company. And as his siblings, we're here to do that. Endeavor then speaks. Oh well, it's going to have to come to an end. It's time for your training. Toya then walks up to his father and says, Dad, I was wondering if you could teach me that new move that you came up with. I think it was called Prominence Burn, I believe. I thought since it makes your flames blue and my flames are blue, it's something that I need to learn. Endeavor thinks for a moment and says, okay, but it might take some time. Toya then says, well then, how about this? We cut Shoto's training for today and you could teach me Prominence Burn. Sounds like a deal? Endeavor then thinks for another moment and says, fine, Shoto, we skip your training for a day. Come on, Toya. Toya then says, thanks, Dad. As they walk out of the room, Toya then mouths the words, look after him, while keeping his voice muted. He shuts the door, leaving the three siblings alone. A few hours have passed. Everyone has laid down for a nap, mourning the loss of their brother. All of a sudden, they're waken up by a shout of horrific screams and pain. They all run out to investigate the noise. When they turn the corner, they see that Toya's body has been on fire by his own flames. And for what they can see, things either got out of control or Endeavor pushed him too hard. Endeavor then acted quickly, grabbing an extinguisher's blanket and throwing it over his son to extinguish the flames. He looks over to the rest of his children and says, call an ambulance, quick! Fuyumi quickly gets to a phone and calls an ambulance. A few minutes have passed when they arrive at the hospital. And about a few hours in the waiting room, Endeavor and his children are sitting and waiting for the doctor to come. Things are quiet until Fuyumi decides to speak. Dad, what happened with Toya? Endeavor just sits there in silence. Fuyumi continues. She stands up and says, did you push him too hard, or did you hurt him? Endeavor then takes a big inhale and speaks. No, I didn't hurt him. I don't even really know what happened. I just walked away and I came back and he was on fire by his own flames. I don't really know what happened. Fuyumi then sits back down. And then they all wait for the doctor to show up with the news. A few minutes later, the doctor then enters the room. And everyone gets up wanting to know what's going on with Toya. Endeavor speaks. So, Doc, what's happening? The doctor takes a deep breath and he finally speaks. Your son is suffering horrific degree burns. And his jaw is nearly falling off. His respiratory systems are failing, along with his other organs. I'm afraid he's not going to have much time. The siblings couldn't cry, for they have already bone-dried themselves from crying earlier. And now this happens. It's like losing another brother all over again. And yet, in the matter of a few hours, they all hugged. And then they kneeled to the ground. Endeavor then asks, can we see him? The doctor then responds saying, yes, but he's asleep right now. They all make their way to Toya's room, but something's wrong. When they show up, Toya's body wasn't there. And when they all looked over, they see that his window has been open. Endeavor speaks. Where did he go, doctor? The doctor then stands there in disbelief. I'm not sure. We put him under anesthesia. He should have been out. A few hours have passed, and everyone is back at home. Shoto, being the most traumatized about what has been happening all day, he speaks in his mind. What is happening to my life? Where did Toya go? And Izuku... Shoto felt lost. He felt like there was nowhere else to go. He felt like there was no hope left. He was completely lost. In the middle of thinking, Endeavor walks up to Shoto and says, all right, Shoto, we won't let this get in the way of your training. Shoto then clenches his fist and his teeth while giving out a loud grunt. He slowly gets up while his father continues to ramble on. Fuyumi and Natsuo then turn a corner. Shoto turns around to look in their direction with empty eyes. Fuyumi and Natsuo then jump from the look that Shoto gave them. The person they were looking at was not the same brother that they once knew. What they saw was a cold, empty shell. We then skip 9 years into the future. Shoto has grown, and his relationship with his siblings are a bit rocky, but they still try to establish a decent connection with him so that he doesn't feel alone. Shoto, in the middle of combat training with his father, delivers a blow that makes his father fly off the battle mat. Shoto then says, "I've won again for the 11th time in a row." Endeavor has trouble getting up, but he speaks during his struggle. "I don't know how you got so strong yet so fast over the years, but I say your training's paid off. I say that you're ready for the recommendation exam." Shoto then says, "Oh, please, you gotta be kidding me. I've been ready ever since the first day I kicked your butt. Now, why don't you stop it with these games? I'm tired of fighting you." Shoto then walks off, as his father was angered by his words. One night, Shoto was in bed. He was having trouble sleeping. The only thing that was on his mind was the recommendation exams. He had no doubt in his mind that he was going to pass. "I'll show that bastard that I can be a hero without his fire." Shoto then looked out to the same window of that night he supposedly lost his brother. Ever since that night, Shoto had terrible nightmares about what that monster could have done to Izuku. Did it torture him? Or worse? Shoto then thinks back to that day with Toya, thinking to himself, if he had simply went to train, it would have been him with the horrible degree burns all over his body instead of Toya. To this day, Toya's body still hasn't been found. Shoto thinks that he might have survived by some miracle, but why hasn't he come home yet? Shoto's mind wandered away from that, and he thought about things that have been bothering him for the past few years. For the longest time, Shoto has been feeling weird sensations of pain, as if something invisible has been attacking him, but yet nothing's there. Shoto decided to go outside to catch some fresh air. He went to the backyard, and as he was walking out, he saw the chains that Endeavor used to wrap Izuku's neck with. The chains were rusty, and they were brown. He felt a rush of anger the longer he looked at them. All of a sudden, Shoto felt a sharp pain on the back of his neck, as if something sharp grabbed him. Shoto then felt something else. Like, wait a minute. I know this feeling. While still in the back, Shoto sees a wolf figure in the distance in a part of the woods from 9 years ago. He proceeds to walk and then stops when he gets another vision. But this time, this one was different. In this vision, Shoto was in a place that he assumed was a cave. It was rocky. Shoto then turns around and he sees a full-grown wolf stumbling, as if it got hurt during a battle. Something strange happened with it. Each step that this wolf took, it would have flashbacks of Shoto's life as a kid. In one step that the wolf took, it saw a young Fuyumi. In another step, it saw a young Natsuno. In another step, it saw a young Toya. And when the wolf made it to the light that led to the exit of the cave, he saw a young version of himself as a young boy. And when the light lifted, Shoto saw what appeared to be a boy around his age. He looks closer and sees him, and he knows who it is. But then, the figure then spoke. "My name is Izuku Todoroki." The figure walks and the vision ends, leaving Shoto in so much bewilderment. He falls to his knees, and for the first time in forever, Shoto feels whole after finding out that his twin brother was still alive. Shoto speaks. "You're alive." He then returns to his feet and then he yells to the sky, "You're alive, brother!" Shoto begins to cry, and all of a sudden he feels a hand on his shoulder. He turns around to see Fuyumi. She speaks, "Shoto, are you okay?" Shoto, with tears in his eyes, hugs his sister tightly. And for the first time in forever, Fuyumi feels something that she hasn't felt from Shoto in a long time. Happiness. As if her brother that she lost 9 years ago was back. Shoto then says, "He's alive, Fuyumi." Fuyumi's eyes widen as she realizes who Shoto is talking about. She begins to cry herself while saying, He's alive?" Shoto smiles and says, "Yes, he's coming home too." Fuyumi then says, "He's coming home? Well, we need to prepare, come on." Both Fuyumi and Shoto run into the house and tells Natsuo about Izuku's arrival. Natsuo speaks. "No way." "He's still alive?" Shoto then responds with "yes." Natsuo then says, "Well, do you know when he'll be here?" "No," said Shoto, but I think it would be best if we keep this from father. There's no telling what he would do if he saw Izuku." After a few minutes of thinking, they decided that if Izuku comes back, someone's going to have to keep a close eye out on him so that Endeavor doesn't see him. Natsuo speaks. "It's probably for the best." "Okay," said Fuyumi. "So we keep this from Dad and we protect Izuku." Shoto then responds saying, "Yeah, I'm sure we'll figure something out." Shoto can't stop thinking about Izuku and what will happen when he shows up. He thinks to himself, is he going to be mad at me? That night, I pushed him away, and I feel somewhat responsible for Izuku being in those situations that I saw. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared, and there's no hiding it. I am scared, and I do hope that Izuku can find it in his heart to forgive me. It's the next day, and Shoto is at the UA recommendation exam, and since there's no real details about the recommendation exam other than it being an academic decathlon, I'm going to have to skip it. But I will change something about it that we know of it so far. In the foot race, Shoto went up against a boy with black hair and a very high spiritual attitude. Shoto lost the foot race, but then the black-haired boy then approached him and introduced himself. "Hey, I'm Inasa Yaroshi. Man, I gotta say, that quirk of yours is really something. I take it that you're the son of Endeavor. That's really cool." Shoto just stands there in silence for a moment. He slowly turns around to face the boy and said, "Thank you. I do try my best." "Hey, what do you call that move? Whirlwind sprint?" "I gotta say, it makes it look like you're flying, and that's pretty cool." Inasa had a surprised look on his face. He thought Izuku was going to be rude, But then Shoto sees his face and he says, "Are you okay?" Inasa then responds saying, "Yeah, I'm fine. Hey, that's a cool name. I'm gonna start calling it that. Hey, what do you say you and I become friends? We're both trying for UA, so let's give it our all, right?" Shoto then stands there, smiling, and says, "Yeah, let's be friends and give it our all." A few hours have passed. Shoto and Inasa walk their separate ways. Inasa yells to Shoto, "I hope you get into UA, Shoto. Good luck." He waves goodbye, and so does Shoto. The next day comes. Shoto is out walking, thinking of what to do when Izuku arrives home. Oh man, was it a good idea to leave home so early? Izuku could show up today and I might not be there. Shoto reaches into his pocket and pulls out a groceries list. He speaks. Fuyumi said she's going to need this to make Izuku's favorite dish. But why didn't she go get them? I want to be the first to see Izuku. Shoto then lets out a sigh and says, "Well, I better hurry," and gets to the grocery store. And about 2 hours have passed. The sun was just above. Shoto was almost home with Fuyumi's groceries. Okay, I'm almost home. I hope that Izuku's almost here. I can feel him as if he's getting closer. Shoto then feels a snowflake landing on his cheek, and he sees bits and pieces of snow falling from the sky. "Is this snow?" said Shoto. In the middle of thinking while walking, Shoto bumps into a stranger wearing a black hoodie. The stranger with the hoodie over his face says, "I'm sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going." He continued to walk. Shoto says, "It's fine." He looks at the stranger and he feels something odd from him. But Shoto just brushes it off and continues to walk home. But while he was walking, he could have sworn that he saw a light. And then he thought to himself, well, a car did just pass by us while the sun was over it, so I just assumed that it had to have been the reflection of the sun of the light of the sun. Yeah, that had to have been it. While walking around the corner, Shoto's eyes widen as he sees a giant glacier of ice in front of his house. Shoto drops his groceries and tries to run to the front door, but it was blocked off by the glacier. He then runs to the back and enters his home. He calls out to his siblings, "Fuyumi, Natsuno, where are you?" Natsuo then calls out to Shoto, "Shoto, in the living room, quick!" Shoto runs to the living room. Coming from around the corner to the living room, Shoto's eyes widen as he sees snow inside of the house and his father beaten to a bloody pulp, with scratches and bruises all over his body, and his face being nearly unrecognized while his right leg was bending the opposite direction. Natsuno and Fuyumi are attending to their father. Shoto ran over to them and he speaks. "Guys, what happened? Who did this?" Both Fuyumi and Natsuno looked to Shoto. Fuyumi was about to cry, but then Natsuno spoke. "Shoto, Izuku did this." Shoto's eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he just said. "There's no way he did this. I know Endeavor treated him horribly, but I never expected him to go this far." An ambulance can be heard from outside. A few hours later, Endeavor is in the hospital and is under anesthesia to help him with the pain. In the waiting room, the three siblings are sitting down, thinking about what happened, except for Shoto, who still hasn't gotten any answers, so he decides to speak up. Guys, what happened? Fuyumi wanted to speak, but when she thought about it, she cried uncontrollably. Natsuno would hug her tightly and said, "It's okay, I'll tell him." Shoto, it started like this. We then cut to a flashback to when Izuku showed up. Fuyumi heard the doorbell ring and went to answer it. She opened the door to a stranger wearing a black hoodie. "Can I help you?" said Fuyumi. The stranger then speaks. "Yeah, actually you can." The stranger then lowered his hoodie that was covering his face, revealing it, saying, "You can start by hugging your long-lost brother?" Fuyumi's eyes widen as she lets out a scream of joy. This frightens Izuku a bit, but he stays. And she hugs her young brother, Izuku. "Izuku, oh my goodness, we've missed you so much." Fuyumi begins to cry as Izuku hugs her tightly. After a few seconds of hugging, Natsuno then comes in and says, "Hey, sis, what's wrong? Why are you screaming?" Fuyumi lets go of Izuku and jumps for joy, saying, "He's here, Natsuno! He's actually here! Shoto was right!" Natsuno's eyes widen as he sees Izuku's face. He slowly walks up to him and notices the scar and quickly brings him in for a hug. After a few minutes of hugging, Natsuno speaks. "I'm so happy to see you, brother. I'm happy to see you guys too. I missed you guys so much." Fuyumi then joins in on the hug. And after a few seconds later, Izuku then asked, "Hey, where's Toya?" Both of the siblings then get sad looks on their faces. Fuyumi speaks. "Toya had an accident 9 years ago, and he went missing. We don't know where he is." Izuku stands there, surprised and concerned, and says, "Oh no, well, what about Shoto?" Natsuno then speaks up, saying, "Oh, he's out getting some groceries. Fuyumi here is about to make your favorite food. Well, hopefully your still favorite food." Izuku smiles and says, "Oh, wow, you could cook, sis? That's really awesome." Fuyumi says, "Thanks. Come on, let's go in and talk about this over some tea." Fuyumi then grabs Izuku by his hand and pulls him in towards the living room, while Natsuno pushes him towards the living room. A few minutes later, Izuku and Natsuno are sitting in the living room. Natsuno speaks. "So, bro, what have you been doing for the past 9 years?" Izuku says, "I'll be more than happy to tell you, but I would I would like for Yumi to be here to listen as well." "Oh, okay," said Natsuno. Izuku then says, "So, what have you been doing while I was gone?" "Oh, well, I've been attending college, and believe it or not, I still don't know what I want to do, I guess. I'm just going with the flow, I guess." Izuku then says, "Oh, wow, you're in college? That's great. Yeah, I can tell that there's going to be a bright future ahead of you, brother. You just have to want it bad enough and to work hard enough to want it." Fuyumi comes in with the tea and gives Izuku a cup, saying, "Here you go, bro." "Thanks, sister." Izuku takes a sip from his tea and says, "So, Fuyumi, what are you doing nowadays?" "Oh, well, I'm an elementary school teacher." Izuku speaks. "Oh, really? That's great. I'll bet those kids are lucky to have you." Fuyumi speaks. "Oh, thanks. They're good kids, and they're fast learners as well." Well, that is true. Well, that is truly wonderful," said Izuku. "I do hope nothing but the best for the both of you. And I really do hope that Toya is found as soon as possible." Both Fuyumi and Natsuno speak, saying thanks. Fuyumi decides to ask Izuku a question, saying, "Oh, Izuku, I have to ask, what do you know about your third quirk so far?" Izuku speaks, "Oh, well, I don't really know what the third quirk is. I think it might have something to do with that day of the incident with Mom. That day I felt what Shoto felt. That night with that night with me and him when we came in contact with each other in the woods. You see, when we made contact with each other, I started to go I started to glow a bright white light, and I'm starting to think that Shoto and I are connected somehow. It's strange. For a long time I always felt like he was nearby, but at the same time I didn't really know who he was. It was crazy." "Oh wow," said Natsuno. "So, where have you been for the past 9 years? What have you been doing?" Izuku was about to answer, but the moment was interrupted by Endeavor entering the room. "Does anyone know where Shoto is? I can't find him." Fuyumi and Natsuno are looking at Endeavor with a surprised look, except for Izuku. Again, Endeavor sees Izuku and is in so much disbelief. Izuku calmly stands up and says, "Hey, Dad." Endeavor lets out a sigh and says, "What are you doing here?" Izuku speaks, "Well, that's a bit of a weird question to ask your son, don't you think? I'm here. I've been gone for 9 years. I miss my brothers and sisters very much. Heck, I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss you." Fuyumi and Natsuno felt the tension grow rapidly. Fuyumi tries to defuse the situation, saying, "Hey, Dad, how about you come over and join us for some tea?" Endeavor instantly responds with, "No. I don't know what you came back here for, but this isn't your home." Endeavor walks up to Izuku and touches him on his shoulder, saying, "I want you out of here." Izuku grabs Endeavor's hand and squeezes it. Endeavor grunts from the pain because of how strong Izuku is. Izuku says, "Please don't touch me." Fuyumi speaks, "Wait, Izuku, just let him go." "Hey, I was just standing here," said Izuku. Izuku then lets go of Endeavor, and Endeavor then steps back from the pain. He then looks up to Izuku and said, "How dare you? I'll have your head for that." Endeavor charges at Izuku with fire in his hands, but Izuku just steps out of the way, and Endeavor trips over the couch. Natsuno then gets up and says, "Dad, come on, just stop." Endeavor then gets up and pushes Natsuno away. This angers Izuku, and he says, "Hey, don't touch him." Izuku charges at his father and then punches him in the stomach. This temporarily incapacitates Endeavor, and he is on his knees. Izuku walks over to Natsuno, helps him up, saying, "Are you okay, brother?" "Yeah, I'm fine. We should probably just go." "Okay," said Izuku. "Come on, Fuyumi. Let's just go grab something to eat. We'll hopefully catch up with Shoto when we're outside." Endeavor then responds with anger in his tone, saying, "No! You dare walk into my home thinking that you're a part of this family? I said it before and I'll say it again. You are not going to be a part of this family." This infuriates Izuku. He clenches his fist, but Fuyumi then steps in, saying, "Hang on, Izuku, please, just let me talk to him." Fuyumi then walks up to her father and says, "Dad, please, just calm down. We just want to spend some time with our brother." Endeavor then gets angry from what Fuyumi said, and he responds back saying, "He is not your brother." Endeavor then raises his hand to Fuyumi and smacks her across the face, knocking off her glasses as she trembles to the floor. Izuku sees this and he grows angry. The look on his face shows extreme anger and uncontrollable rage. Izuku's eyes then began to glow a bright white light, and all of a sudden snow began to fall from the sky outside. Natsuno sees this, and he could tell that this is Izuku's doing. Out of the blue, Izuku attacks Endeavor. He kicks him in his right kneecap, bending it, making it bend the wrong way. He then proceeded to punch his father so fast and so hard that he couldn't even fight back. As this is happening, the snow from outside makes its way inside the house as the window shattered. Izuku continues to punch his father over and over again as the room began to fill with snow and blood began to spill from Endeavor's mouth and the wounds that were on his body. Izuku had no intention of stopping. He saw that his father was too weak and too tired to fight back, so he stopped for a second, and so did the snow. He continued to stand over his father. Izuku took a couple of breaths, and he speaks. "Don't you ever touch her again, you bastard!" Endeavor looks to Izuku with his one good eye. Izuku continues, "You made my life a living hell. I was just a boy, and you treated me like crap. All I wanted was your love. But now I finally see that you're no good man, let alone a hero. You're just a monster that needs to be put down." Izuku then raises his right hand into the air as he uses his ice powers to conjure Wolverine claw-like tendrils just at the nape of his knuckles. He then aimed the claws at his father as he says, "I'll see you in hell, you bastard." Izuku was about to stab Endeavor until he was stopped by Natsuno calling his name. "Izuku!" Izuku turns around to his brother holding his sister, crying in his arms. Izuku then realizes his mistake. He looks into a mirror and saw himself, only he saw someone else. Izuku then looks down to his father, and then gets off of him, not wanting to scare his siblings anymore. He raises his hands up and says, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Izuku then left the house, and we're back to the present time. Natsuno holding Fuyumi tightly in his arms as she cries harder for talking about the past incident. When he left, we heard a loud noise outside, and after a few minutes, you showed up. My goodness, it was really traumatizing. Shoto just sits there in bewilderment. Wait, a black hoodie? That means... Shoto then had a flashback of when he bumped into Izuku and the light emitted around their bodies. And then he says, "I passed him. We came in contact with each other. That's what that light was. Oh my God, I saw my brother, but I didn't recognize him." The doctor walked in with a sad look on his face. Natsuno and Fuyumi then stands up. They both say, "How's he doing, doctor?" The doctor takes a deep breath and says, "Well, not so good. He has many fractured bones and his lungs are bruised. His right leg is completely disconjointed. Whoever did this beaten him within an inch of his life. But I'm sure that with enough time, we can heal your father completely. So he should be okay." They all take a sigh of relief, except for Shoto, who is still pondering away about everything. They may not get along with their father, but deep down, they really do care about him. They're glad that he's going to be okay. But Shoto is still pondering away about what is happening, thinking, Natsuno then puts a hand on his brother's shoulder and says, "It's going to be okay." I wouldn't say that he's a bad guy. We'll just say that Dad did something wrong and he just acted out of instinct. Shota then looks up to his brother and smiles. "Yeah, you're right. Are you guys okay?" asked Shoto. "Yeah, we're fine. But we're more worried about Izuku. He's out there somewhere." Shoto then stands up and says, "Well, I'm gonna go see if I can go find him." Shoto then leaves the hospital and goes to as many spots that he could think of, looking for anyone wearing a black hoodie, and trying to think of many spots that Izuku could possibly be in. But after a few hours of searching, he came across nothing. 3 weeks have passed. Endeavor is still in the hospital, but his children are doing their best to look after the house. Fuyumi says, "Well, Shoto, are you ready for school to start?" Shoto then says, "Yeah, I'm ready." Shoto has a distracted look on his face. Fuyumi sees this and she knows what's going on and says, "It's going to be okay, Shoto. I'm sure he's fine. He just needs some more time." Shoto then responds back saying, "I know. It's just, I ran into him. I didn't notice him, and he didn't notice me. It's like we were two different people." Fuyumi then says, "Hey, it's okay. He was wearing a hoodie, and with that scar on your face, he probably didn't recognize you either. Hopefully, you'll see him again on the right playing field. There's a reason we didn't tell the police who really did that to Dad. He just needs some more time." Shoto looks to his big sister and says, "Okay." He smiles and then leaves for school. As he makes it to the UA premises, he finds his class, 1A, and then he comes across a big door and says, "Why is this door so big?" He then opens the door and sees that it's empty, saying, "Oh well, I did show up about 2 hours early." He then sits down to the nearest chair, and about 2 hours pass. Everyone has arrived. He looks over to the corner of his eye and sees that there's an empty chair and says in his mind, "There must haven't been enough qualified candidates this year. I guess this was the best they could do." Class was nearly about to start. They were just waiting for their teacher. All of a sudden, the doors to the classroom then bursted open with a gush of wind, with a boy with black hair emerging from it. He looks over and sees Shoto and says, "Hey, Shoto, do you remember me? It's me, Inasa, from the UA recommendation exams." Shoto then responded back saying, "Oh yeah, Inasa. Hey, it's good to see you again. I'm glad you made it to UA, especially in the same class as me." Inasa then took a seat next to Shoto, and they talked for a little bit. And after some time, the doors to the room of 1A opens, and it shows a sort of caterpillar figure emerging from it. It stands up and it unzips itself, revealing a man wearing all black with a white scarf around his neck. He speaks. I'm Shota Aizawa. I'm your homeroom teacher for this year's semester." Anyway, I want everyone to get in their uniforms and meet me out in the training ground. A few minutes later, everyone is out in the training grounds, and they did a quirk assessment test. Now, everything's going to go like it is in canon, but I'm going to change a few things. One thing is that Inasa is there, and that he will be in 4th place of the decathlon, while the last person in last place was expelled. This was Minoru Mineta, and this led to his expulsion. After class was done, everyone headed home, but Shoto was stopped by Inasa, who screamed for his name. "Hey, Shoto!" Shoto then turned around to see Inasa running towards him. He waited. "Hey, Inasa, what's up?" Inasa then said, "Hey, what do you say you and I hang out sometimes? Like, catch a couple of burgers here and there?" Shoto then turned around and smiled and said, "Yeah, I like that. Cool. What do you say you and I exchange phone numbers just to keep in close touch? That cool?" Shoto then responded, "Sure," and they exchange numbers, and they go their separate ways. As Shoto heads home, he thinks about how good it is that he made a new friend today, but his thinking was interrupted by a police car seen in the front of his lawn. Shoto then rushes up to his house and sees Fuyumi and Natsuno talking to a police officer while tears run down their faces. Shoto got closer and closer, and then he yells, "Hey, guys, what's wrong?" Natsuno then runs up to Shoto and says, "Shoto, Mom's been kidnapped." Shoto's eyes widen in disbelief. "Wait, what? But why? Who would want to kidnap her?" A police officer then walked up to Shoto and said, "Young man, could you think of anyone who would want to do this?" Shoto immediately responded with no, for he really didn't know who would do this. The next day, the next day comes. Shoto is supposed to be in school, but he is busy with the police officers answering as many questions as he could to help find his missing mother. After answering many questions, Shoto had some questions he needed answers himself. He finally speaks, saying, "Look, is there anything that you guys know? Like, what did the person look like?" The cops then said, "Well, the person who kidnapped your mother seems to have some sort of ice quirk. He bursted down the walls to the room that your mother was in, and he snagged her up and ran." The police then show a footage of the kidnapping in progress. As Shoto watches, he sees that the person who's grabbing his mother is wearing a black hoodie, and he knows who it is, and he cannot believe what he was looking at. The police then said, "Do you know who this is?" But Shoto responded, saying, "No, I don't know who that is." Shoto couldn't help but lie, for he didn't want his brother to get in trouble. He thinks for a moment to himself and says, "Brother, what are you doing to her right now? Why are you kidnapping her?" The next day comes, and as Shoto was allowed to go back to UA, Shota Aizawa sees Shoto and asks Shoto, "Where were you yesterday?" Shoto then responds back saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Aizawa, but my mother got kidnapped and the police needed my help and answer as many questions as I could. I was allowed to come back today." Aizawa then realizes Shoto's situation and cuts him some slack, saying, "Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she returns home safely." "Yeah, I do too." Shoto then goes to his seat, and Aizawa then announces that they will be taking a trip to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, also known as the USJ. "Everyone, get your hero suits on and meet me at the bus station." Inasa then walks with Shoto down to the changing room and says, "Hey, Shoto, I heard about what happened with your mother. I really do hope that she returns home." "Thank you, Inasa. I hope she does too." Shoto can't help but think about the footage of what he just saw. Why would his brother just kidnap their mother like this? About an hour later, everyone shows up at the USJ, and they are met with the Hero 13. "Good morning, class. Today, you will be conducting a sort of rescuing simulations in all sorts of situations, from earthquakes to sinking ships. Are you all ready for this?" Another student with red spiky hair then says, "Oh wow, you guys even got fake villains here. That's so cool." Aizawa then steps forward, looking and seeing a man emerging from a portal. he speaks. Well, hi everyone. Allow me to introduce ourselves. We're the League of Villains, and we're here to take down the symbol of peace. With him, there emerges hundreds of more bad guys. Everyone looks to them, but one person in the group catches Shoto's eyes. Shocked because who he saw in that group standing there with anger in his eyes was the eyes of his own brother. And that's the end of the story. That is the end of part 3 of What If Deku Was a Ice Wolf. Now, I will continue this series, just that right now I feel like I need to get back to the Fire Wolf one, which is coming up next week. Be prepared for that. And yeah, I'm sorry to leave you all on a cliffhanger, but it just calls for it. Anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and like I keep on forgetting to do at the end of every one of my videos, if you would like a background like this with the wolf walking and the fire wolf one, there will be a link in the description below so that you could have this video, so that you could have this background for yourself. I hope everyone has a nice day, and if you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #blessed, and I hope everyone has a nice day. Goodbye.